John Gregory Vincent here with the Submarine Way. One of the most powerful ways that we drive real change in organizations and real change in individuals is through storytelling. Diversity and inclusion, the Submarine Way, is full of stories, but we haven't been very intentional about doing videos on those stories. So we're going to start. And the first story is the story of Cory. And this is all about changing perception. We think that once someone has a first impression, that's it, you're done. And that's simply not true. People can change, and other people's view of people can change. You really can do a transformation. What is the story of Cory? I was reporting to a submarine in Charleston, South Carolina, and literally from the first time I walked across the gangway, I noticed a young man who, it seemed like no matter what time of day, he was out there working, or he was sort of in charge, even though I don't think he actually was in charge. And he was directing people what to be chipped, what needed to be primed, what needed to be painted, what areas had been missed. He just always seemed to be not just busy, but productive. We exchanged pleasantries, but not much more than that. So probably after a few days, I asked my fellow chiefs, if you're not familiar with the Navy, think middle managers, my fellow middle managers, hey, what's the deal with Cory? And they said that, Mal, the deal with Cory is when we deploy here in a little bit, Cory's getting discharged out of the Navy. Oh, what's that all about? Well, Cory had a fundamental issue because of where he grew up and how he grew up. He solved most of his problems with fists, literally fighting. And he was good. But not necessarily something you really want in a submarine environment, that people solve things by, punching each other in the face. So Cory had been in a bit of trouble and was just deemed not someone who had a future in the United States Navy. I didn't necessarily see that. I saw a lot of potential in Cory, and I don't know how much Cory knew he had potential, but it certainly didn't cost anything to have a conversation. So Cory and I had that conversation. We had it in a very private, very tight, enclosed space on below decks on the submarine. And I asked him if he wanted to get thrown out of the Navy. I mean, are you okay going back to, kind of where you came from? And he said, no, I don't want to be thrown out of the Navy. I want to stay in the Navy. I said, why? And he said, because if I go back there, I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to wind up running with the same crowd. Now I'm going to wind up dead or in jail. I want to do this. And I said, well, do you know why you're being thrown out of the Navy? And he knew why. And I said, do you know what changes that? And he didn't have much to say there. And so I fed him the line, you can change that. You can change everybody's perception. You can change everybody's view by doing one of the fundamentals of the submarine way, which everyone matters if they contribute. You've got a work ethic, you've got a charisma, you've got a natural vein of leadership that runs through you, where people look to you for direction, not because they're scared of you, because they respect you. But that only goes so far. What most people see is a loudmouth, disruptive, violent person. And that's not going to get you anything but gone. At the end of the day, you and I have a lot of similarities, but the difference is they sort of see me as this eccentric, hardworking guy that produces great results, and they say you as a punk. And Cory got very close. A little creepy I'm doing this on camera, but Cory got very close to me. And I thought for sure, he was getting thrown out of the Navy. I thought for sure, he's going to neck me. But he didn't. He actually got a little misty in his eyes, and he said, I don't want to be a punk. I want to be successful. So I said, okay, here's the deal, Cory. I will go to the commanding officer. I will say I will take you into my division. I was a navigator, the quartermaster division. I will essentially sponsor you in, and you will come to work with me. And there's only one hard and fast rule that we have to get out right here. No more punching people in the nose or anywhere else. That can't happen. He agreed to that. Said everything else you and I will work out together. We'll figure out what fires you up. We'll figure out what you do best. We'll figure out all of that. but we'll do it together. Well, I went to the commanding officer and I said, I want to keep this guy. Here's why I want to keep him. And here's what I think he can do. The commanding officer said, all right, I'm going to hold you accountable for his actions. I said, I'm perfectly good with that. Now, let me be very clear here. This isn't the story of John helping some poor lost soul. This is me just merely, literally, probably if you added it all up, a couple of hours, getting somebody focused. And we reinvented him, and he reinvented himself, is how I should say that. And we reintroduced him to the crew as a contributor, as a hard worker, as someone who was focused, as someone who could be counted on. And slowly but surely, the crew accepted the new version of them. He always had it in him. He was just presenting differently. And he really began to click, and he really began to be valued by others. And that guy who was getting thrown out of the Navy went on to become a mid-level petty officer, moved up a couple of pay grades. He then went and got a commission. He went to college. He got his degree. He got commissioned as an officer. He went on to teach navigation at Annapolis. He went on to be an executive officer. And he went on to be a commanding officer of a minesweeper and is now in the prospective commanding officer pipeline. Probably when this video comes out, he will be a commanding officer of a warship. This is what happens. By the way, 99.9% of it done by Cory. 0.1%, perhaps I gave him a little bit of insight into how to reinvent. People, we can change ourselves. We are not locked into being what others have tried to define us to be, but you got to do something differently. And a powerful way to do that is the submarine way system, because we are strength-based. What's right with you? Inclusion-focused. You can't do it by yourself. And mission-oriented. Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there? Reinvent yourself if you need to. Get better if you already are good. And make whatever you want to be the reality of your future. That's it. It's the story of Cory. Learn a lot more on our YouTube channel here. You can also learn a lot more on thesubmarineway.com.